Good evening, all. This is Ramanujam. Welcome everyone to the 8th session of PMI Whiztalk organized by PMI Kerala chapter. Hope I'm audible to everyone.
Yes.
So, yeah, great. Thanks. So, before we kickstart with the today's session, would like to share with few announcements to start with. Yeah.
Here's what I found.
So to start with, as we know, the Onam is around the corner. So I think we are PMI Kerala chapter starting with two events. One is Onam Particle and Onam Memories. So as part of the first event, Onam Particle, so we request you to post the video. I can share you the link in the chat box. Basically, the video should be less than 10 MB size, and family members and friends are most welcome to join this video. This is a first event, and the second event is about you can share your own memories that we would like you to post the most favorite Onam memories with your friends and families. So I would like to share the link on the chat box to everyone. You can also use hashtag PMIK Onam. And next week, there won't be any Whiztalk due to the Onam festival that we'll be celebrating on. So we kindly request all the participants to actively participate in these events and make it more memorable with PMIK. So today's session we have from Uma. So it's about leader's dilemma, balancing the head and the heart. That's a topic that she would be uh, talking with us. So before we hand it over to Uma, I would just like to introduce her to you all. So Uma comes with 30 years of experience and spent close to 18 years in IBM under various managerial roles and capacity. And she has the credit of publishing 5 papers in various PMI conferences over the past 4 years. She's also certified portfolio management professional and project management professionals from PMI. And apart from her professional uh, expertise, she's also pursuing her Carnatic vocal in Carnatic vocal, and she loves to gardening and play chess, and do meditation whenever she has time. So also to from the personal friends, she's married to Sri Muralidhara, who is a chief scientist at NAL, and she's blessed with 2 daughters. So Uba, it's a pleasure to have you in today's session. Probably you can take over from me and start the session. So before we start, we expect the participants to raise their hands or questions in the chat room, so that we can take it to the host at the end of the session. Yeah. Thank you all. Over to you, Uma. Thanks.
Thanks, Ramanujan, and thanks for the great introduction. And let me start my presentation. Let me share the content. So thanks to PMI Kerala for giving me this opportunity. And is the screen visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay. So good evening to all of you. Thanks for sparing your time and joining me this session. And before I start, a happy Onam to all of you in advance. Yeah, as the title suggests, I will be talking about the leadership dilemma, which is about balancing the head and the heart. The agenda is quite simple about the head leadership and the heart leadership, and how do we balance these two. I would also share a couple of real-time scenarios that happened during the course of my own career. And in case time permits, we will have some experience sharing from any of the participants. I'm sure each of you will have your own experiences, and you could spend some time sharing that experience. Coming to the leadership journey itself, let's see how the leadership styles have changed across the decades. If you look at the 1960s, may I request all the participants to go on mute, please? We would like to so that the host can manage it. Okay, so in the 60s, we saw what is called as the situational leadership. And this was typically in the manufacturing industry. So where each division had a different functionality. It was mostly functional based. Can I request the participants to go on mute, please?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So in the during the 60s, we saw what is called as the situational leadership, which was mostly seen in the manufacturing industry. And what it typically means is the leader would change their style based on the situation. Sometimes it had to be authoritative, and sometimes they were democratic, sometimes autocratic, and so on and so forth. And of course, it's not that these leadership styles do not apply these days. It certainly does apply depending on the situation, but it was more prominent during the 60s, and that is where the this type of leadership style was seen during the 60s. When we come to the 70s, what we saw was the leader-member exchange. What does this mean? This means what a leader would do is he would typically segregate his team into two groups. A set of people who were in the inner circle of the leader is what we would say. This group was typically called as the in group, and these members who were within this circle, the leader would have complete trust and confidence in these members. They would be assigned critical tasks, whereas there was another set of people who were outside the circle who were called as the out group. And this group was just being informed of some high-level activities, but they were not communicated all the necessary information. So that group was typically kept out of all the managerial decisions or any critical tasks, whereas the in-group was where which won the confidence of the leader, and the leader was naturally very close, and he had a lot of trust in the members who were part of the in-group. And this was a style which was typically seen in an organization like IBM. And as you may know, till 1993, all the leaders, all the CEOs of IBM were ingrown people. It was only in 1993 when Lou Gerstner took over IBM as a CEO, they got to see an external leader. So this was a leader-member exchange type of a leadership where we segregate them into two groups. And this is also called as the LMX theory. For those of you who are interested, you could Google and get more information on the LMX theory. Then when we come to the 90s, we saw what is called as the transformational leadership. As I mentioned, Lou Gerstner was the first CEO for IBM who was not an insider. So he was the first outside the organization, the CEO who came in. And we all know the story of how Lou Gerstner transformed IBM and where he had to take major decisions. Same was the case with leaders like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates during the 1990s, where we saw organizational transformation coming into picture under their leadership. In the 21st century, we have now moved into what is called as the servant leadership, where it's not just my own victory, it's not my own accolades that matter, but it's also how I take my team along with me. And that is what is the servant leadership that that is being enforced or being incorporated these days. We take, it's not just our own growth, but we grow along with our team. So it's not just individuals. We have seen this in organizations like Marriott and Starbucks, and also some individual leaders like Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King, and so on and so forth. What we have now coming into is the emotional leadership. Now, what is this emotional leadership is, while it's not just the tasks and other things, we also need to get connected with our teams on an emotional basis. That is, we need to get connected with them very closely. We need to win their trust and confidence so that the productivity increases, and as a team, we are able to perform better. So coming to this emotional leadership, I will now, the whole topic that is revolving around today's discussion, which is about balancing the head and heart, is a part of this emotional leadership that I have mentioned here. What I'll now do is, I will take you through one scenario, and I would like each one of you to answer the question that comes at the end of this scenario, and through either a raise of hand or you could put a chat box that we mentioned earlier. Pramod, coming from a poor, manages to complete his graduation but is jobless. Shouldering the responsibility of managing his family with an ailing parent and a differently abled sibling, he resorts to chain snatching. On an ill-fated day, he gets nabbed by the public, while trying to snatch a chain and is handed over to the police. What should be the next course of action? Option A, he should be punished as per the law. Option B, he should be excused with a strong warning. Option C, can't say. I give you about 15 seconds. You could please post your answers in the either option or a raise of hands. You can use the chat box to type your options A, B, or C. Ramanujam,
Yeah,
to just help me with
sure.
this.
So most of the majority of them voted for A, five of them voted for B, and two of them voted for C.
Okay, so as expected, majority of you say that he should be punished as per the law. So let me take you to another scenario now. Radha is a maid working for Shraddha and Ramesh, a couple from a middle class family. Radha's 7-year-old son has been diagnosed with a hole in his heart, which has to be operated upon. Radha asks Shraddha for a 30,000, which she would repay in a period of time. Now imagine yourself to be the that is Shraddha. You do. Option A, give her the loan. Option B, refuse the loan. Option C, I don't know. Again, you get 10 seconds to answer. Okay, Ramanujan, your help, please.
Yeah, so here most of them have gone with A. I think only 1% has suggested B. Otherwise, most of them have gone with A.
Okay, great. So typically, if you look at these two scenarios, the first one, which was about the chain snatching. So we all understand while whatever may be the reasons, you can't break the law, and certainly we would have to uh, go by what our head says, right? Uh, as per the rule, you can't resort to criminal activities, whatever be your personal situation. So we would naturally our head says that he has to be punished, and we go by what our head says. Next scenario, here it is our heart that cries out. Even though 20,000 is a big amount for a middle class family, we still we would still like to go and lend it out, so that we go by what our heart says rather than listening to our head, which says, what if she absconds, what if she does not repay, and all those things. This is what typically a head leader would think of. But in this scenario, we would go by what our heart says. So as you can see, let's now look into more of this traits of this head leadership. The head-driven leadership is for sustaining relentless focus on achieving the goals and being disciplined. So these are people who have ambitious goals, and they also set your standards high. So what are the characteristics they exhibit in your workplace? They focus on the business objectives. They maintain high standards, and these are typically the action-oriented people. They're task-oriented. So if you remember the PMBOK, I'm sure many of you are PMP certified, or at least going in for your certification. The stakeholder engagement talks of three types of people: the action-oriented, relationship-oriented, and process-oriented. So these are the first set of people who are more on action-oriented. They focus on competence, skills, and knowledge, and getting things done is important. So these are typically the people who go by the rule book, and they are the ones who are focused on their goals, and achieving the goal is more important rather than the relationship. So leading with your head, it's about competence and knowledge. What about the heart leadership? This is an effective way of cultivating trust. These leaders can build cohesive teams and cultivate a strong workplace culture where all employees can thrive. Now, what are the characteristics such a leader would demonstrate in your workplace? They focus on the relationship. They make you feel special. They appreciate the people, and they also help you understand the sense of purpose, why the task is important for you. They help you get the big picture. And these are the people who are more worried about the care and connection they impart to their teams. So typically, these are people whom I'm sure, even though the project duration is about a few months old, we still remember some of our managers or the leaders for decades, right? And these are people who have the demonstrate heart leadership. So what are the styles? A person who is leading an organizational change from the heart, they are more engaging, caring, people-oriented, and they're naturally people-oriented change leaders. What are the strengths? They're highly motivating and they're very supportive. So you can always look forward to their support in case you need any help. In terms of the areas they could focus upon, or the negative areas of improvement, as we generally call it as, they neglect to revisit overall change goals, and they don't devote attention to the specific tactics of the change process. What about a leader who is responsible for bringing in organization change by demonstrating head leadership? They're more strategic, futuristic, purpose-oriented change leaders. They're highly inspirational and big picture visionary. As I told you, they help you connect to the bigger picture and help you understand the purpose of the task that has been assigned to you. However, they do have some pitfall here. They may leave others behind, wanting to move sooner than people are ready, and they lack detailed planning and follow through. So getting the task completed is what is important for them, but in that process, they may forget the how part of it. How do you achieve the task is something that could be forgotten when you focus on a head leadership. As with any leadership style, there's nothing like a right or wrong in these styles that I'm talking about. It's just that how you balance these two and make sure that they work best as a partnership. So at times you may have to demonstrate the heart leadership. At times it may the situation may require you to demonstrate head leadership. As a leader, you should be able to find a healthy combination of the head and the heart so that your team can also learn and develop along with you. So lead with your head to manage complexity. So situations which are highly complex and you are bringing in a transformation, like if we spoke of transformation leadership and all that, and at times you will have to demonstrate head leadership. If again you have a team which is highly diverse and you have to manage the diversity, manage thoughts coming in, and you need to seek inputs from various team members, those are situations where you'll have to work with your heart. As I said earlier, we will open up for questions at the end of the session. I will now take, I hope by now you understood what is head leadership and the heart leadership and why it is important for a leader to balance these two. To substantiate this understanding better, I will now take you through a couple of scenarios which happened through my own, during the course of my own career as a manager. And then we will open up for questions. In the first situation, I'm sure many of you are already familiar, those of you who have been associated with the IT industry during the early 2000s. The IT industry had a major slowdown, and every organization was in the process of laying off their employees. So pink slips became very common. And this was also the case with the MNC that I was working for. For reasons of confidentiality, I would not be mentioning the organization name. So let's focus on the situation rather than getting into the nitty-gritties of which organization, which employee, and other things. So it was very common that employee, if I enter the office today, I'm not sure whether I will be allowed to enter the office again tomorrow or not. So that was the situation. There's a lot of uneasiness and discomfort with every employee every day that we walk into the office. So naturally, as part of the leadership team, we got the communication that we also had to terminate the services of a few of our employees. And since this being a management decision, there was no choice to say that, no, I know this person, I know he or she is a very good performer, and we certainly need them, whatever the things. So we had to communicate and terminate the services of the group of employees who had been identified. So in this situation, the mind, if you go by the head leadership, naturally your head says, just follow the rules. Why are you bothered? It's up to the employee to seek their job. And naturally, we all, when we sign our offer letters itself, we are aware of the fact that we would abide by the management decisions, and it's all up to us. So we are aware that these things could happen, and we should be prepared for it. But again, if you look at from a heart, as a person demonstrating heart leadership, if you start listening to your heart, then just think of what the situation of the employee would be. How would they face their family? What if they are the sole breadwinning member of the family? What if they have some aged parents to take care of? What if they have a small young kid or a very small family to be taken care of? And so many other questions, right? So looking at the situation from an employee's perspective, certainly there is some amount of guilt feeling as a leader. Am I doing the correct thing? Is it okay? I know, yes, it's an organization directive and I need to execute. I have no choice but to execute this decision. But is there a better way that I can handle this? Can I help? Is there any way that anything that I can do to help the employee? So in this situation, what is it that we do? We did. We as leaders, we decided to do things differently. Like they say, leaders don't do different things; they do things differently, right? So with every situation, you always have an option to go by the rules book and do what is asked for you, or you can go that extra mile and do things differently. So that is exactly what we did here as well. We worked closely with some placement organization. We got them to come down to our premises and meet these employees and make sure they get placed at the earliest. We also arranged some professional counselors who again came down to our premises, who sat with these employees. Could be one-on-one session, they could be group discussion, an overview of how to get over this crisis, and on an emotional front, right? Because this is very depressing, all said and done. Although how much ever you are prepared for a situation, facing the reality is a different ballgame altogether. So with these actions in place, I mean, we did really get over the situation in a smoother way than what other organizations had seen. So what was the result of this thing that we, by going this extra mile, the outcome of this was the employees were able to tide over the situation. The placement organization took this up on a top priority and made sure the employees got placed at the earliest. And this also became a benchmark against other organizations. They started looking up to our organization and saying, look how well they manage this crisis. And of course, among the employees, the organization already was known to be an employee-friendly organization. And this incident substantiated itself that as leaders, we not only followed the rules and executed the management decision, but the way we handled the situation uh, helped us win the confidence of our employees. The next situation is again with one of my own team members. This was a team member who was reporting to one of the managers under me. And he came from a college in the northeastern states of India. And he was working in some small organization. This was an organization in near the Majestic area. I'm sure all of you are aware of that, the Kempegowda Road in Bengaluru. If this is where the railway station and the bus stand and all that is situated at the heart of Bangalore. And there are very, very small companies, which hire people, and naturally the offer letter is more like a mail that goes out, and then the employee comes and joins them. Salary is paid by cash, so there are no pay slips. And this team member was working in such an organization for 2 years. He was a very sincere worker and a very good performer as well. And after working with them for 2 years, he had joined our organization. And incidentally, it so happened that when they performed the background check of this employee, they realized that the company that he was working for was not registered. So as such, there was no evidence to say that the 2 years of experience that he had mentioned in his resume was valid. So that morning when I entered the office, I got a mail from my HR saying that this so-and-so employee needs to be terminated immediately because he has faked his resume. So as far as the HR is concerned, it was a fake resume that he has submitted to the organization. Again, if you go by what my head says, it would just say, just send him off. You have been asked to terminate him, call him into a conference room, tell him this is what it is, and take out his badge, his laptop, and other assets that has been given to you, and ask him to walk off. But whereas, if you just spend 2 minutes thinking of what would be, how would the employee respond to this communication? If you look at it from his point of view, then you naturally your heart starts crying out for him and says, why don't you do something for him, right? So in fact, when we communicated this to the employee, he really broke down because he was the sole breadwinner for his family, and he was absolutely clueless that something like this could ever happen. And he always thought he was a person with 2 years of experience, and naturally he could get a job easily. And Bangalore being the IT hub, so he was proud to be working here and all that. And this was really a bolt from the blue for him. So how did I manage balance my head and the heart? Right. So naturally there's a conflict. What did I do? First and foremost, these are situations which need a lot of counseling. And I did tell him many a times what we think is 2 years, 3 years, 5 years of experience. We feel, oh, okay, we have really achieved one big milestone. But look at the big picture. An employee's career is, on an average, it ranges anywhere from 30 to 35 years of experience. So I gave him that big picture, and I said 2 years is not a big deal in that span of 35 years. It's not even 1% of your whole career. So start your career afresh, and naturally this 2 years of experience is not going to go waste. You have been a good performer, and you can certainly prove yourself in whichever organization you have been doing. While all that is good to say, and here we also, as leaders, we need to make sure that the employee gets the required support. So I made sure that one of his close friends escorted him home and stayed with him through the day. In the meantime, I got the resume from him, And I spoke with a few of my friends who were looking for freshers because those were days when there were a lot of startups and a lot of organizations were looking for freshers. Naturally, he could not mention his 2 years of experience as a fresher, but eventually he did get a job through one of my contacts. So what was the result of this? Employee, of course, was able to manage the situation. And it was not just him, even the team appreciated the support that we extended to him. And personally, also, you feel good about it that fine, while my head said that this is a management directive and I had to act by it, I could also listen to my heart and do something from the heart. So these were two situations that I could demonstrate the head and the heart leadership. So what's in it? Why are we doing this session? So as I said, if you look at even our age-old epics that are so famous, either you take the epics like Ramayana or Mahabharata, situations are clearly black and white. There is good, no, from the beginning, the good has to win over the evil. So there's absolutely no conflict. Whereas it's in our day-to-day life, it's not so, right? It's not just black and white. Situations are mostly in shades of gray. So that is where the conflicts arise. And such conflicting situations we have come across in a lot of our own epics and great books in the past also, even if you look through the history also. The conflicting situations are something which are very common. Like if you take a case of the story of Dushyanta and Shakuntala. So there, when I'm sure many of you are familiar with that story, right? When Shakuntala comes to the court of Dushyanta saying that you are my husband, and unfortunately she has lost her ring, and Dushyanta has forgotten. So Dushyanta cannot accept any woman as his wife without any evidence because he has forgotten. And the only thing that could help him remember was the ring which she has lost, right? So he's refusing to take her while she says, as a woman, I have to stay with my husband and you need to accept me. So this is again a situation where it's typically good versus good, right? And same is the case if you look at the story of Karna. There are a lot of situations where it's good versus good. Both the parties, they are right from their angle. So there's nothing like good and evil where you can say, okay, this is right, this is wrong, right? For example, the chain snatching situation where we saw that, okay, this guy has to be punished. So there, in our day-to-day life, we have a lot of conflicting situations, but can we avoid them? Certainly, you cannot avoid them. Can you run away from them? No. Escapism is not at all a solution. We need to see how do we analyze the situation, listen to your mind, listen to your heart. The head goes by the rules, head goes by the logic. It is extremely logical, and it also goes by our upbringing, the culture, and various other things that we have been brought up. While the heart goes more on the relationship and how is it, what is it you need to do from the other person's point of view as well. Then work out options. Like I said, apply the best solution, strive for a win-win. So follow your heart, take your brain with you. Follow your brain and take your heart along with you. So that's when you can really balance the head and the heart. And I'm sure that's the sweet spot that you will arrive at, be it a task-oriented leader or you're a relationship-oriented leader. If you have to get the best of both, it's basically getting the best of both worlds, right? So, any questions? You could post it in the chat box. Okay. Is it better to have more of head leadership to rise in a corporate ladder? Well, as I said, there's nothing like using one over the other. It's highly situational. Some situations, yes, you have to demonstrate head leadership, right? For example, when Google decided to back out of China, you cannot be empathetic and you cannot be thinking of, okay, what do we do with all these employees that are there with us and all that. You have to demonstrate head leadership and take a decision. Similarly, as I said, if you are bringing in some transformational changes, like when IBM decided to sell off their PC division, it was again their head leadership. There was no room for heart leadership being demonstrated. At the same time, there are could be certain situations where you may want to consider heart leadership, right? And the heart may have to rule over the head, not just in our personal life, but even in our careers, in our workplace. I have already demonstrated a couple of situations. I've typically taken situations where there is a conflict, because some situations it's straightforward head leadership. For example, when we do the appraisals, right? So again, in some situations there could be conflict. In some situations it could be straight black and white scenarios where you have enough evidences, enough scenarios to substantiate your decision as to why so and so has been rated as a poor performer or a top performer, whatever it is. More so for a poor performer, right? But in some situations, there could be some conflicts. In such a case, it depends on the leadership style. Does it depend on the company culture? True to some extent, yes. As I said, organizations culture. We do know of some. I mean, even in our own personal life, if you go to, of course, the situation scenario is changing these days. But typically, if you walked into government organizations like an RTO office or an LIC office or anything like that, what would be the response of the clerk at the desk that you would be approaching? However valid your question may be, however valid your queries may be, it was typical. There was absolutely no heart leadership being demonstrated, right? Organization itself, the culture in the organization was purely head leadership that was demonstrated. At the same time, the trend is changing these days. You walk into a bank or even a post office for that matter, the response from the same clerk is much different these days as compared to maybe a decade earlier, right? So certainly, yes, it does depend on the corporate culture.
So there doesn't seem any other questions on the chat box. So thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your vast experience and knowledge on the evolution of the leadership and leadership dilemma, especially the way you clarified some of the questions. It was very helpful. So thank you so much again. And at the same time, thank you all for your valuable time. And PDU code claim has been pasted on the chat box. And wish you all a very happy Onam, and request you all to participate in PMIK Onam events as well. And as I said in the starting, there won't be Whiztalk for the next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you all, and special thanks to Jai Krishnan and all the members of the Kerala chapter for giving me this opportunity to share some of my experiences and my thoughts around this leadership style. And thanks for the all the active participation from each one of you. Once again, a very happy Onam to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.